Hello friends and welcome to lesson number 3. This is the 8th video of this lesson and we have completed about planning commission in India, where we studied about the various 5 years plan in our country. In total we had, if you remember the previous videos, so in total we had 12 5 years plan in our country, right, with some breaks in between. So I hope you remember that picture, that graph that I had shown you in the previous videos. That is just to have a visual memory through which you can remember the years in which there were breaks in planning and which 5 year plan was from which year to which year. Also, we also studied about the economic policy, the focus areas, the various schemes and achievements that happened during the various 5 year plans. Also, we saw the criticisms of those plans. In this video, we are going to summarize everything that we studied first, and then we'll see how we transitioned from planning commission to NITI Aayog. Okay, so we'll study very briefly in this video, and we will study in much more detail in the upcoming videos about the NITI Aayog and its functioning, right? Because for the present context, in the present times, NITI Aayog is a body which is running in our country for almost 10 years now, and we need to also assess and evaluate the functioning of NITI Aayog. How is it different from planning commission? How is it functioning, whether it is successful or not, that also we'll see. Let us first see the summary of evolution of planning in India. So this is a table that I have created. I'll just expand this table so that you can see. In this table you see that I have made this table to show you the various years, and also what was the economic policy in brief, what were the focus areas, and what were the major schemes. So this is a summary of everything that we studied in the last 4-5 videos. You may want to take a screenshot of this for your own reference. So we'll just very briefly, very quickly we'll go through this. So 1947 to 51 was a pre-planning period. As we know that this was the time when our constitution was under making, and we were thinking about how to have the economic policy in our country. So we were trying to rehabilitate the people and also to stabilize the economy, right? So that was our focus during this period. Then we came to the first 5 year plan, which was from 1951 to 56. This was the economic policy, the Harrod-Domer growth model. Will not go into much detail because this is not useful for people from economics background. Agriculture, irrigation and basic industry, that was the focus area. Bhakra Nangal Dam, River Valley projects, these were some of the major schemes. So you can see this. This is just a summary. I won't go through this one by one in detail again, because we have already seen this. But you see that how is the evolution of economic policy happening here. This is an important thing. So from Harrod-Domer growth model to Nehru-Mahalanobis model, which focuses on heavy industries, then to self-reliance and import substitution, and then finally then shifting to crisis management because of this plan holidays. Then we started thinking about mixed economy, some participation by the private sector also. Poverty alleviation, pro-poor growth, short-term focus, again because of the break in the planning. Then we started thinking about liberalizing our economy in the early stage, 1980s to 85. Then we brought some economic reforms, and finally the breakthrough that happened in these 2 years, which was the LPG policy, liberalization initiation. During this 1990 to 97, we actually had LPG implemented. Then finally we started talking about growth with equity, which finally in a broader sense we call it inclusive growth. Then we also started talking about environment and sustainability. So that is how our policy evolved over a period of time. You can just have a look at this, and then maybe we can proceed further. So key evolutionary trend, if we talk about this, there are, in the initial years, there was focus on agriculture and self-reliance to stabilize the economy. Secondly, from 1960s and 70s, these 2 decades, there was a shift to industrial development. Initially, we were thinking more about agriculture and self-sufficiency and heavy industries. Now we started talking about industrial development in the country, poverty alleviation post green revolution. Okay, because poverty was the biggest challenge for India during this period. The 1980s, this decade, we saw early liberalization and focus on infrastructure. In 1990s, this was the most important decade actually. Here we saw the structural economic reform. So we opened up liberalization, privatization, globalization, these three words you must be hearing again and again. So this was the structural reforms that actually transformed our economy in the coming years. In the 2000s, this decade, emergence of inclusive growth, the concept of inclusive growth, again and again I'm telling you, this is an important topic. Inclusive growth is a growth where all the sections of society and all the regions of the country are benefited. Social welfare schemes, which includes education, health, sanitation and other things, whereby people are directly benefited. So this scheme started. Manrega also started to reduce the rural poverty during this period. In 2010s, this decade, although in 2015 we had NITI Aayog, and in 2017 the last 5-year plan ended, but this decade saw a shift towards sustainability, technology and innovation driven growth. And we also had a lot of financial inclusion policies like Jan Dhan Yojana and digitization, mobile linking of mobile phone to the bank account, Aadhaar and all those things. So this was this period, after which then we moved to NITI Aayog and its way of working, which actually was a continuation of the previous system only, kind of, but there was definitely a lot of differences in terms of thinking and in terms of the way we did things. So there was a change in thought process actually. So what is important is the change in thought process, change in attitude. Okay, post planning commission. So abolition of planning commission in 2014. In 2014, as you know, the new government had come and it abolished the old planning commission. Establishment of NITI Aayog in place of planning commission. So NITI is basically an acronym and its full form is National Institution for Transforming India. Okay, NITI. It is a fundamental shift in India's economic policy. How is it that we are going to see? What are the key differences in the thought process? Okay, what changed when it comes to thinking about how we plan for our economy? See, ultimately in the very first video I had told you that planning is all about resource mobilization. Okay, how we mobilize the resources available in our country for our growth and development, for our own welfare. So planning is all about resource mobilization, whatever is available to us, how we can use them effectively and efficiently for our development. So for this, we changed the thought process. Whatever was happening in the previous maybe 60-70 years, now there was a shift in that thought process. So what was the difference? The very first and important difference was that planning commission had a centralized planning system, whereas NITI Aayog took this centralized planning to cooperative federalism. Okay, so cooperative federalism meaning that the state government also had a role to play. Now they also had a voice to raise their concerns, also had a participation in making of policies for the national level. So planning commission, which had the top down approach, meaning that decision would be taken at the top from Delhi, New Delhi, and then it will be sent to the states, to various states, where the center dictated the state allocations and development priorities. So New Delhi used to dictate New Delhi meaning the central government, the union government dictated the policies, development priority to the states, and accordingly funds were allocated. Okay. However, NITI Aayog changed this fundamentally. So NITI Aayog adopted a bottom-up approach. Bottom-up meaning that feedback will be taken from the bottom, meaning from the grassroots level, from the states. Finally, it will be converged in New Delhi, and then policy will be formed. So this is a bottom-up approach. So it emphasized cooperative federalism. Cooperative federalism meaning, this term you must have studied in your GS2 also. This is a system whereby center and state, and also the states among themselves, they cooperate with each other so that we can grow as a country together. Okay, the system whereby there is a cooperation between the various government at different levels. So one government is at the union level, there is another government at the state level, and then there is a third government at the local level also, which is Panchayati Raj and urban local governance. So wherever this proper cooperation is there between the union and states, that system is cooperative federalism. So NITI Aayog gave that fundamental shift. It brought that fundamental shift and started the cooperative federalism approach, whereby states were involved in decision making through platforms like the governing council. So we are going to see about NITI Aayog in detail, how it functions, what is the organizational structure in much detail later on. But you try to understand that this is a very, very basic and fundamental difference in the thought process when it comes to changing from Planning Commission to NITI Aayog. Then what was in another important change that happened was flexibility versus fixed plans. So 5-year plans were rigid and based on specific targets, which were often outdated before completion. So before completion of the 5 years, the targets which were given used to become outdated, used to become moot. Okay, so there was no meaning to those targets, and since they were told from a very centralized agency, it was very difficult to change them. So it was very rigid, and they never took the feedback also, for that matter. So there was no feedback there was not a bottom-up approach. Then NITI Aayog shifted to long-term vision documents for 15 years, medium-term strategies for 7 years, short-term action plans for 3 years, allowing more adaptability. So there was more flexibility. So the decision making was based on evidence. It is now based more on feedback from the state, from the ground level, so that policies can be changed and very easily. There is no rigidity in that. So that is a very, very important difference again. Now focus on policy advocacy and think tank. Now Planning Commission primarily focused on resource allocation, okay, and central government programs. So Planning Commission used to dictate that this much fund will be given to education, this much will be given to health, this scheme will be brought, this will be done without taking any feedback from the states and from the ground level. So there was more focus on how much funds will be allocated to which ministry, to which program. However, that is not the job of a centralized agency. The job of the centralized agency is basically to act as a policy think tank. So that is what again changed. So NITI Aayog acted as a policy think tank rather than a body which will dictate resource allocation. So now it acts as a policy think tank, advising on reforms, driving innovations, and promoting the public-private partnerships also. So now private sector also has to be included in the developmental process. Without private organizations, private players, complete development is not possible. That is what NITI Aayog does now. How we can partner with these people. The next shift was related to emphasis on evidence-based policy making. Okay, as I have told you. Now, what is evidence-based? Evidence-based is basically data-based. So they will collect the feedback and data from the ground level, how this policy is working, what is required actually from the data. For example, if we collect data on nutritional status, so we'll actually see what is the condition now. And that is an evidence that some intervention is required in this particular area because the condition is bad. And that is how policies are made as to what exactly is to be done. So that is evidence-based policy making. NITI Aayog promotes data-driven governance with tools like aspirational district program, emphasizing real-time performance monitoring and impact evaluation. So it also does real-time performance monitoring as to how different districts are doing in this program, and also what is the impact that is happening. So after 6 months, after 1 year, what is the change that we are seeing. So we are going to see in much detail about the aspirational district program later, but just try to understand that this is one of the important brainchilds of NITI Aayog. Next one is market oriented approach. Planning Commission relied on state-led development. Here state meaning not the state governments. State-led development means government-led development, meaning that the private players will not lead the development, government will lead the development. It will enter into industry, it will open industry, it will do the infrastructure development. So that is state-led development, just like the USSR model. NITI Aayog encourages private sector participation, deregulation of various sectors, policies to support innovation and entrepreneurship such as Startup India and Digital India. So again, these are also the policies given by NITI Aayog. Why was there a change in 5-year plan? Why was it given up? Because it was obsolete in globalized economy. What is the meaning of obsolete? Obsolete meaning having no relevance. Okay, having no relevance meaning having no practical significance or importance in the current times. So now it has become obsolete. It may have been useful in 1950s, it may have been useful in 60s, 70s, 80s, but currently it has become obsolete. It is now of no use especially in a globalized economy. Then there is a need for agility. Agility is opposite of rigidity. Okay, so we don't need to be rigid, we need to be agile, we need to be flexible. So that is needed. That's why NITI Aayog has been brought. State autonomy. So we now also need to give autonomy to the state governments. Global practices of long-term visioning. We need to have a long-term vision rather than just looking at the 5 years. So we need to have a long-term development goals, then divide that into maybe 15 years, and then again into 7 years, and then 3 years, small, and then adapt accordingly. And then diminishing relevance. So Planning Commission's relevance was diminishing day by day because now we have already entered into a kind of mixed economy where private players are also important. So state-led development has no relevance as of now. So these are some of the points why 5-year plan system was given up. What is the impact of this transition? Success. Let us now first look that NITI Aayog has modernized the governance with a forward-looking, data-driven approach. It is more adaptable and inclusive than Planning Commission. Inclusive because now it also takes feedback from the state government. What are the challenges? Limited financial control and slow state adoption of reforms hamper its full potential. So in some of the states, see, they have very little adoption of the reforms suggested by the NITI Aayog. Maybe because of some political reasons, some geographical reasons, etc. We don't know. But there are slow adoption by the state government, and that is one of the challenges. Also, NITI Aayog does not have any financial power, just like Planning Commission used to have. They, Planning Commission would dictate resource allocation. NITI Aayog does not have any such power. So it has some challenges. What is the future path? Strengthening federal-state cooperation, enhancing policy execution mechanism. Now we have good policies, we have good reforms suggested by NITI Aayog, but execution on the field is also important. So we need to have good mechanisms for execution and ensuring greater accountability. These are essential for NITI Aayog to outperform the Planning Commission. So this is about, this is just a brief overview of NITI Aayog. We are going to see in much detail about NITI Aayog in the upcoming videos, and also how it is performing. We'll also see some case studies, if possible, and then you will understand how now we are currently doing our resource allocation and planning in our country. Thank you.